Welcome to your myofascial release practice for your hips. Now, what you'll need for today is just a small ball or a tennis ball or a myofascial release ball, either one that you have. So we're going to start at the wall. All of these moves that we do at the wall, you can also do on the floor, but know that on the floor, they're going to be a lot more intense. So if you get to the wall and you start doing these exercises and you're like, I need a little bit more, take it down to the floor, which I'll show you after we do this. But just for now, we'll start on the wall. So we're going to take the ball and start with the ball in your hip. So in this little hip bone back here against the wall. So you're going to put it between your hip and the wall and then lean right into it. So we're just going to roll around and find any spots that you notice in your hips. And we're starting up here. So if your hip bone, you can find your hip bone. Your hip bone is up here. So you can roll all around that entire hip complex, even over towards the side of the sacrum down here. I would not go over the tailbone, but just to the side and then all the way down. So feel free to stop the video now and just explore that entire hip complex. You're going to feel some pretty intense positions there and places that you're holding a lot of tension all through that outer hip, right? Now, when you find a tight spot and you kind of sit on it, what I want you to do is contract your glute and then release it. Contract your glute and release it. So you're releasing some of the tension and then going into it a bit more, right? This contract release technique will help soften some of that tightness deep in the muscles and just let it go a little bit more, right? And then you can do a smash and roll. So rolling over that spot, if it's still not letting go, do a little more contract and release over that trigger point, and then do a little more rolling up and down. So take your time, really roll around that whole hip. And again, feel free to stop the video. On that same side, we're going to then go around to the side of your hip. So follow that hip crest all the way up here, and you're going to go into your side pocket muscles. So I want you to explore all the way around here and down in the side of the hip here. So feel free to lean right into that side pocket. So this is what we do with all of these side hip muscles that, they feel really interesting. So really get in there, and you are putting the ball right here in that little pocket where you feel your hip bone right there. It's just below that. You'll definitely feel some trigger points and some tenderness there. Again, same thing. So rolling up and down, you can do the roll up and down. When you find a trigger point, you can contract and release. So you're going to push your leg into the wall and then release into it. Now try to relax your muscles. When you're doing this, if your muscles are tightening up against that ball on the muscle, it's not really getting to the release part of that trigger point release, right? So if you find that you go to a trigger point and your muscle clenches, try to do a contract and release and see if you can release into it, right? All right, so spend some good time on that outer hip. Awesome. And then the third part of this is the front little pocket right here of your hip. So you want to find that juicy little hip flexor muscle right in here. So at the wall, you're going to lean against the wall, just straight on. This one's a little harder to do at the wall, but keep that leg nice and relaxed. And then you can roll around and just see what you find in the front of the hip. If at any point you feel nerviness or numbness or tingling, back off, right? That means we're hitting a nerve, and we want to try to not hit those nerves and not try to, increase that tingling. Note what you feel, but just go a little less with the pressure, right? So hip flexor, you can do the front hip flexor. Awesome. And then come off the wall. Feel the difference between left and right. Ideally, you spend 1 minute to 2 minutes in each area. So you would spend 1 minute or 2 minutes here, 1 minute or 2 minutes here, 1 minute or 2 minutes here in the front, right? Feel free to set a timer. And then we do the other side. So left side, same thing here, all along the side of the hip. Put your hip into the ball. Again, remember, release the muscle, right? If you clench that glute, you're not going to get the same benefit. But we can do contract and release to make sure you are getting that release over that trigger point. Explore around in there, find your trigger points all the way down, again, to the bottom of the tailbone here. You can go even under here, like really low. This might be a little easier to find when you're sitting, but you can still do it at the wall, right? If you're here, you can actually lean forward and find some of those trigger points here. Like, don't be afraid to get in there, right? So you're leaning, so that ball is here, you're leaning against the wall, getting up into the really deep parts of your hip, right? 1 to 2 minutes exploring, feeling around, right? Doing contract and release on any trigger points, and then rolling on top of it once you've released it a little bit, maybe going back and doing contract and release, and then rolling a bit more. All right, and then on that side, we also do the outer hip out here, so that glute medius on the side, so you're leaning directly on the side. And again, find any tight points that you feel, contract and release. So contract and release on this side is really pushing that leg, the leg that's at the wall towards the wall. So that would be a contraction of this. Ooh, this has a tendency to get a little nervy as well. So back off if it starts getting nervy. All right, good. And then the last part is this front hip complex, right? So you're coming against the wall, you can lean, let go of that left leg, and then just explore around in there to the top of your hip bone. So what we're releasing here in the front is that TFL. It's a little muscle. Like if you're going to put your hand in your pocket, it's right there. So that's where you want to roll around. And this actually replaces IT band rolling, because IT band doesn't actually have any muscles on it. It's a connective tissue, and it connects to this TFL up here at the top. So by releasing up here at the TFL, you're actually releasing your IT band as well, right? All right, so really roll out in there at the wall, and then come back, feel how it feels, shake it out. If you want more intensity, you can do this whole thing at the floor. So I'm not going to go through the whole process, but basically what it looks like is to put that ball underneath your hip and put your whole body weight on it, right? The key is to keep this leg super relaxed, right? Go around all around it. I love doing this while I'm watching TV. It's a really nice place to be. As you're going higher up into the pelvis, like up here near your pelvic bone and your pubic bone and like near your tailbone, I kind of like this one because you can modify how intense you go with the other foot, right? So explore in there. And this one, you can get a little more guidance. You have a little more control over where that ball is when you're up higher up into the pelvic floor, right? So explore, set a timer, 1 to 2 minutes here. Then the side looks like this. So you put that ball right here in the side and you lay on it like this. This leg is extended and we just roll forward and back this way, right? Directly out to the side. You can go all the way up to the hip bone, right? Not on the bone, but just below it. Good. Woo, it's a zinger. And then this last one is in the front pocket of the hip right here. Whoops, lost my ball. You're going to come forward and lay on it this way, right? So my ball is here underneath my hips. And you're going to roll on the front of the hip. So you don't have to go all the way down the IT band, but we're rolling right here, just at the top part of this hip pocket. All right. So have fun exploring your hips. Find all those nooks and crannies in your pelvic floor and around the tailbone and around the sit bones. It's such a fun place to explore. And, you'll definitely find some really interesting spots there. But once you release them, you have a world of spaciousness ahead of you. All right. So enjoy. Great job.